there, this is Jean Tiberio, and I'm a nutritionist and a wellness coach. I'd like to welcome you to Healing Outside the Box, and more specifically to episode 265, which I'm calling Delicious Home Cooking Starts with a Plan. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been doing some thinking. Not too much, mind you, but I've been doing a little thinking about the times we are living in right now. Seems to me like we're living in biblical times. Just my opinion, could be wrong. We've got this whole political end of days, perhaps just bubbling under the surface. Then what we have is a volcano in Iceland, just bubbling up over the surface, seemingly forever. And then we have the flooding in the east here, with the remnants of a few hurricanes. Then we have the end of days drought in the Midwest, and of course the burning bushes in California. Then we have earthquakes opening up the earth with a big ugly crack in it in Haiti. Then we have the earthquakes without a fault in Oklahoma. Those would be the no-fault earthquakes. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are one swarm of locusts away from cashing in our chips. Unless, of course, we get a handle on this whole climate change business. Meanwhile, the smart guys at NASA who could help us through this are sitting back at their desk, just picking their noses and waiting for Rover to come back from Mars. Rover being not a dog, but a thing that lands on Mars. So I'm sure you're thinking, why should I be flapping my gums telling everybody to cook healthy meals at home? Why indeed? Well, let's just call it a distraction for now. And just maybe a way to turn our frowns upside down. Now, in my previous episode, I mentioned an article in the Journal of the American Medical Association, basically saying that if we complement the money we give to low-income folks with instructions or tutorials on how to cook healthy meals, their success rates improve significantly. And by success rates, we in the nutrition biz are basically talking about measurable outcomes. And that maybe is weight loss, reduced blood sugars, reduced blood pressures, cholesterol, and even improved moods. The more meals that are cooked at home, the better the health outcome numbers. I'll put the link to that in the show notes. But as they like to say in Maine, how do you get there from here? Especially when most of us are working more hours, more childcare responsibilities, and more overall stress. I suggested in my last episode that creative cooking can be a stress reducer, a money saver, and a health promotion activity. And maybe get your kids involved while you're at it, if your patients can handle it, and that would be a win-win. They can help you prepare supper, and they will learn to cook healthy, which will set them up for a better chance at maintaining a healthy weight. So how you get there from here is with a good plan that starts before you go to the grocery store. Let's back it up a step further. You may want to get yourself a notebook, or use your desktop computer if you have one, or a notepad on your phone. Well, the first thing that you may want to do that has worked for many people is to set goals and write them down. When I was training at Well Coaches, they talked about setting goals from a long-term vision and then breaking it down to 3-month goals and breaking that down further to weekly goals. Then it seems more, feasible. I'll work on this for a few weeks and then I'll bring in something else so it won't seem overwhelming. And that is, of course, totally up to you. But I found that if I'm looking at it and I've thought about it, I can see how I might actually go about doing it. It also helps in setting priorities. This is what's important to me. This is why. What possible obstacles can get in the way, and how you might go about foreseeing or working on those obstacles. One obstacle, for example, may be, I like fish, but my husband isn't a fan of the fish I like. And that leads you to think about what ways you can go about making it work for both of you. Number 2, I've found when talking to clients that writing a food diary of what you eat and drink is very helpful to see where the bad habits creep in and what sort of stress might be getting in the way of your progress. One study showed that dieters who wrote down what they ate for, say, 3 days lost twice as much weight as those who did not. So the idea is to write down everything you normally eat during one day, or if you can handle it, 3 days. You could type this into a computer file or use an app on your phone. It helps sometimes to write down the times that you're eating these foods, and as much as possible, be honest with yourself. You don't have to show it to anyone. This is for you, and the purpose is to help you make the changes that you want to make. One of the larger goals here is for you to respect yourself, love yourself, obviously, and maybe forgive yourself for not eating perfectly. Because, folks, nobody does. This is about making your health and your happiness a priority. I recently saw a quote on Instagram, and I can't tell you who wrote it because the author wasn't below the quote, but it said, quote, "If you don't make time for your wellness, you will be forced to make time for your illness," end quote. And when you look at your food diary, it could help to ask, am I meeting the goals from my eating plan? Am I getting enough fruits and vegetables? Do I eat when I'm tired or stressed? Am I leaving myself enough time for meals? Am I eating the same foods every day? And is that what I want to do? Or is it because I don't have the time to give it much thought? Okay, that was step 2. Step 3. This is kind of a fun thing. You might want to ask yourself what you enjoy in a restaurant, what foods you would choose to eat if you had plenty of time and money. What type of healthy snacks would you choose to eat? Is it the time or the money that may be preventing you from doing that? Okay, let's narrow it down even further. What types of protein do you eat? Are you willing to try meatless meals, even for a day or two? If not, that's okay too. This is about you and your goals. What types of green vegetables do you like? Or what would you order in a restaurant? How about healthy starches? Anyway, you get the picture. I want you to enjoy what you're eating, to avoid feeling punished because you can't eat the foods that you like. Okay, that's 3. Number 4. I would suggest if you're looking to cook, this would be the time to find recipes, either from your own cookbook or on the internet. But you don't have to go crazy with dramatic changes all at once. If you're currently a meat eater, you may want to avoid vegan meals with no fat at first because it's too much of a change from your usual habits. I would start with taking a recipe for a meal you would normally enjoy, say in a restaurant, cutting the amount of fat, if there's a lot of fat, and printing the recipe, or storing it on your phone. For example, if the recipe calls for, say, tacos with pulled pork or skirt steak, you could probably substitute shrimp for the meat. With Chinese food like General Gao's chicken, maybe you could use a good marinade and pan fry instead of deep frying the chicken. Number 5. Before you go shopping for the week, maybe write down some ideas for suppers. And you don't need to cook 7 suppers during the week. In fact, I would recommend that you plan to make your own supper a few nights per week at first, and leave the leftovers for the other nights. Think of this as a design. You are an artiste, and you are brainstorming and setting down the blueprint for the artistic creations you are about to do. If all this sounds overwhelming at first, just think of your favorite meal in a restaurant and Google a similar recipe. Then just reduce the fat or change the meat to chicken or fish. If you need assistance doing something like this, I'm available to help. Just email me on my contact page on my website, which is healingoutsidethebox.com. I offer wellness coaching, printed recipes, and quick recipe videos to get you started. Number 6. If you don't have a laptop or desktop computer and prefer to work from a phone or iPad, there are lots of apps that you can load on your phone. Food&Nutrition.org has several pages of apps for, say, counting calories, vegan meals, relaxation and meditation, and recipe planning. There's an app called Bite Snap, and it's on iOS and Android. There are many others as well. On that particular one, you can log meals and count calories. I think you take a photo, and they'll estimate the calories for you. Not accurate, but it might be entertaining, and it causes you to remember what you've done. Number 7. I normally recommend you start with a couple of recipes for the upcoming week. Again, you can print them if you have a printer and store them in your kitchen or on a storage app. And then, and I usually forget this part, you can put them in a place so that you remember what you're planning to make. More than once I've gotten the ingredients, brought them home, and forgot what I did with the recipe. Now, once you have a plan to make a couple of recipes, put the ingredients on your shopping list. Number 8. On your first few trips to the grocery store, it might help to get some basic herbs and spices. Now for me, since I like to cook Italian and Mexican, I would get a fresh basil plant, fresh thyme, most produce sections have it, fresh garlic, dried oregano, maybe red pepper flakes, and for me, cumin and coriander. For additional stock items, I keep cans of San Marzano tomatoes, cans of red and black beans, a few types of pasta, tortillas, tomato paste, sweet peppers, and poblano peppers. Oh, and a red or Vidalia onion on hand. So whatever you choose for your go-to meals, according to your preferences, it may help to keep a stock of basic ingredients handy. So then when you go to the grocery store on any given week, you can write down the ingredients that you will need to add to your stock items to make those recipes. If you are not making your stock or broth, you may want to buy a shelf-stable vegetable broth or chicken broth. The ones that come in the cartons are better versus the cans. And I suggest the organic broth or stock. I recently read a journal article about bone broth, and it notes that in some bone broths, there is a measurable amount of lead that can theoretically leak into the water. So that's just a word of caution about some of the bone broths they're selling on the internet. A little bit of an organic broth should be okay, however. And if you want to buy chicken on the bone and make your own broth by sticking it in the water with some garlic and onions, even better. Oh, by the way, in that article, or maybe it was in a similar article, they mentioned that for some reason the bones of living chickens absorb lead in their chicken feed and groundwater, and it concentrates also in the cartilage and skin. So it might be a good idea to remove the skin and cartilage before you boil the chicken for your broth. Anyway, to counteract that absorption of lead into the bones, you can throw a few cloves of garlic in the broth, and that for some reason pulls the lead out of the water. Just one of those mysteries of life. Anyway, so you've got your stock items, your grocery items, and your recipes. The other thing I would do is think about what gadgets would really help you in the kitchen. Just basically, I think, what do I plan on doing? Say I'm going to use lemon juice from lemons in my salad dressing. So maybe I'll get a lemon squeezer. They're only a few bucks, and I've actually used it quite a bit. But there's a lot of accessories I haven't really used. But don't beat yourself up if that happens. Put the item in the Yankee swap next Christmas. The other thing I invested in are a few good knives and good quality cutting boards. Also, it's nice to have storage or leftover containers that are glass and can handle the oven, microwave, and dishwasher. For about $20 to $30, you'll be glad you did. Hopefully. Now, the last thing I want to mention is some general advice that is true about art and turns out true about cooking, I think. First, you learn the rules and methods so that when you become confident, you can eventually break the rules with greater success. And it's true about both, I think, because cooking is an art and a skill. So, that's all I have for you today. Be well and stay tuned next week for another episode of Healing Outside the Box.